the Around the NFL podcast. Won't drink the Zach Wilson Kool-Aid.
They're serving that somewhere? From the Chris Wessling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. Week 11 draft preview. I'm Dan Hanzus. I got Gregg Rosenthal here. And little station note, because I know everybody loves Mark Sessler. And Mark has been dealing with a reoccurrence of a medical condition he's dealt with. People that listen to the show know he's had some issues with blood clots, and that popped up again this past weekend. And we are now waiting for Mark to rejoin us, but we don't want to rush him back, Greggy. So we're hoping we get him back this weekend, but basically telling him to take it easy and get 100%.
Yes, we love Mark. We want the best of Mark, and this is the middle of the season. We can handle it and make sure that the show is still afloat for when he gets back and just has a monster playoff run.
And that's why I'm leaving as well. So we're just going to leave it to Gregg. His dream is about to come true. No, really, we need reinforcements, though. So welcoming him in from Cleveland, easy for me to say, where he just got in a morning pump and did the thing, filled up the pint glass with egg yolks. Do I even have to say his name? You know who it is. Nick Shook. Pinch hitting. Francisco Lindor, bases loaded, 2 outs in the ninth.
That was a classic playoff game back in the day. I've never had the egg yolks before like that. I'd imagine they would be pretty gross, but I do enjoy some eggs in the morning, and that was part of today's diet for sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, Nick, we appreciate you. Kind of hit up Nick on short notice last night, and as he always has been, just always there for us.
Yes.
He's a good man.
Except for when he left us to go back to work for the Browns briefly. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was weird.
But he made the right choice. Come to the homeland. Come home.
He's back, baby. All right. Shook, this is your first draft with us. So you're going to essentially be picking in Mark's slot, which is second overall. And we got a big slate of games. Kind of a weird slate, Greggy, because you have 2 monster primetime games that we hit on the Wednesday show with Connie Fox. Make sure you check that out. Eagles-Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Tonight is Bengals-Ravens, and I'll be on the recap of that later. So those are 2 big games with winning teams. Now you look at the Sunday schedule we're about to break down, and Gregg, I count a single game with 2 teams with a winning record playing. So we have a lot of haves v. have-nots, but you could spin it this way. How about this? That the have-nots here, and many of them are in getting into desperate straits as we approach December, and kind of can't keep falling behind, so there's a lot of urgency on both sides here.
It's a lot of we're at the point of the season where you get that 6 loss, for instance, your Jets 4-5.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of fans, some of them overwrought, some of them right on, feeling like, oh, the season's over. It's like once you get to about 6 or 7, and I always push back, say, no, you got a chance to make a run, but it's getting there. It's getting there.
Put you in the danger zone. So I will pick first. I have the first overall pick. Oh, one more bit of housekeeping. A lot of our locks, and Shook, you don't have to worry about a lock today, but a lot of our locks actually came out of those primetime games. I took the Bengals. The Cincinnati Zoo took the Eagles against the Chiefs. Sestog also in that game, but it's a lock-off because he's taking the Chiefs. And I got a note from Nick Wessling who said, Gregg, if you were a real man, you will go a lock-off against Nick Shook and take the Chiefs as well.
I will do even better than that, Nick. I am going to do a lock-off, but I'm going to do a lock-off against your team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Have a lock-off with Dan Hanzus on Thursday night.
How about that?
This is what happens when you don't look at the full slate before the Wednesday show. I woke up this morning, I'm like, I don't really like any of these.
All right, lock it up. It's a lock-off. And really, that sets up
a double lock-off. That's never happened before.
I'm so buried in the standings, my only chance is to win things like lock-off. So the urgency, listen, it's me and Joe Burrow versus the world. I'm okay with that tonight. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get to the first overall pick. And like I said, if there was a home run slam dunk game for me to take, I would be all over it because I have the first overall pick, and you could say, "Oh, Steelers Browns." That's there it is. That's the only. But I don't the 14th string quarterback of the Browns. I just can't do it. It doesn't excite me as much, and I know it might excite some other people that do this podcast more. So I will go with my team, the New York Jets, in desperate straits, heading to Orchard Park to face the Bills. And, listen, let's start with the Bills. There had to be a fall guy. Well, there didn't have to be, but in the case of Sean McDermott, he decided it was Dorsey, his offensive coordinator, who is a part of the problem, not the solution. So he sends him out the door. And, I thought that was interesting, Shook, set against the backdrop of what's going on with the Jets, where the fan base is going nuts, clamoring for some type of change, as they are. If you look at some data points, the Jets are a historically bad offense. It's been games now without a touchdown. Zach Wilson has 5 touchdown passes all season. They obviously shot themselves in the foot with a late turnover that got them beat by the Raiders. Shook, so here's the situation now. You have the Jets, who should be making changes but won't, against a Bills team that maybe surprisingly made a big change when they could have stayed the course and try to straighten the boat out. Both teams desperate for a win here.
Yeah, what this comes down to, at least in my opinion, is a change worth a change just to make a change? Because what's your second option? Tim Boyle? Like, is that really going to fix all your problems all of a sudden? I don't think so. And I have to defend Zach to a degree, even though, like you said at the top of the show, they're selling Zach Wilson Kool-Aid somewhere because it's probably tastes terrible. But the thing is, every once in a while, you get a swig where you're so parched.
Anymore. I can't do this.
You're so parched.
Why are we doing this still?
Just quenching enough.
Why are we still doing this? They don't score touchdowns, Shook. They can't score. And you can't, because he makes a no-look pass and makes a couple throws, people do drink the Kool-Aid. It's coming from Florham Park, and people saying, "Oh, don't look at the quarterback. It's a greater thing." And yes, it's not just him, but it's long overdue that they should have made a change by now. And that's the frustrating thing, because I think it's going to be the Jets defense in this game, Greg, which has always in the Robert Saleh era really done well for the most part against the Bills. And I'm just interested to see how the Bills offense looks different here, and if the Jets continue to bring pressure and really getting close to must-win territory for them.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to week 1 when we previewed this game and went through all the numbers of how poor Josh Allen has been against Robert Saleh defenses. Like he's basically great in every other matchup, and against this Jets defense, he's been terrible. And then you think back to what actually happened in week 1 and how this season has played out, and I think the Jets defense should have a ton of confidence in keeping this game under 20. And if I'm the Bills, are we confident that their defense is going to show up? Because this touchdown-less streak that the Jets are on, it's 36 straight drives. These are the defenses you've gone against. The Giants, one of the very worst defenses in the league statistically. The Chargers, one of the worst defenses in the league statistically. And then last week against the Broncos, against the Raiders rather, not one of the worst defenses in the league, but in the bottom 10. So they're doing nothing against mediocre defenses. Buffalo, this is your chance. Even despite your injuries, you should be able to go out there, Sean McDermott, and kind of win the game on that side of the ball, get a little more of a pass rush than they've been getting. I really think that's been ignored too much in Buffalo, and it's why they've been so mediocre.
Here's some data points. To back that up. The Jets have more turnovers than touchdowns, 6-5, inside the opponent's 50-yard line. They are the 4th lowest third down conversion rate in the past decade through 9 games, 25%. Lowest third and short, third and one or three conversion rate ever, 25%. Red zone conversion rate of 23% would be the lowest since at least 2000. So, yeah, this is set up well, Shook, for a get-right game for the Bills, right? Because they're at home. They're mad. They made this change. They get maybe some type of bounce off that offensive play caller. But can we trust the Bills at this point, especially at home? We've watched so many games. When we were in London, Shook, you did it with Claybon, the Sunday night game against the Giants. You never know what version of this team shows up in Orchard Park right now.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with them is they don't know who they want to be. They lack an identity. That explained a lot of why they fired Ken Dorsey. And you think it should be a get-right game, at least in your defensive matchup, as opposed to what you're facing on offense, because that Jets defense is the only thing that's kept them in any game. And the way the Bills offense, the state of it right now, I'm not confident at all. Not to mention the fact that they've had Josh Allen's number dating back to last year. Like, that was his worst setups for the most part, his worst matchups were against the Jets, who just somehow had figured him out, caused him to make a lot of mistakes. Well, now those mistakes have bled over into other games, into Monday night's game against the Broncos. You look at where they had an explosive 3-week stretch. That was over a month ago. Since then, they've just been an average offense. They don't run the ball well. And even when they do run the ball well, they're turning the ball over way too much like they did on Monday night. I just have no real faith in this team outside of Josh Allen. And when he's turning the ball over, which leads the league in turnovers, leads the league in interceptions, then where do you go? Because they go as he goes. And right now he's not going very far, no matter who the offensive coordinator is. And against this defense, I just don't feel very good about their chances. Not saying that they're not going to win the game, but I think we're in line for a very low scoring game, kind of a boring game, unless you're a fan of defense.
The over-under here is 39.5. Love me.
That's too high.
Let me some under there.
Bills getting 7.
The Bills are 7-point favorites. This is not lockable. I would not have wanted to. Anyways, I thought it was crazy when they were 7.5-point favorites going into Monday night. The way that they were coming into that game, they didn't even win the game straight up. I think that's a lot of disrespect for the Jets based on this matchup. But man, whoever loses here gets a 6th loss, and it does start to feel a little late for either of these teams. Not quite done, but getting close for whoever loses.
We got to move on, but I just want to ask one question to you, Greg, because I'm thinking again. I thought the Dorsey firing was curious. Like, what do you think is going to be? How you think the offense might change? Like, what are things that haven't looked right other than just the sloppy play and turnovers? Like,
right,
scheme wise, what's going to be the change?
Run the ball more, I guess.
Whatever.
But they were running. They were running the ball.
Guy.
I just feel like that's what McDermott wants. But they were running the ball plenty, and they ran the ball well, for instance, on Monday night. So they just kept, dribbling it.
And Josh Allen, he said it was personal to him, that firing, because he did essentially handpick Dorsey as the guy. Maybe that's the biggest message McDermott could send, because he's not going to bench Josh Allen, and he's been kind of the focal point of a lot of the inconsistency. So you get rid of his guy to send a shot.
Or maybe just leave your defense on the field for a field goal in a hurry-up situation like basically every other coach would have done. So that's Sean McDermott.
Fair too. All right, Shook, you're up. 2nd overall pick.
All right. Well, you left this gift to me, the one game between teams with winning records. That is Browns Steelers going over on the shore. I had a debate the other day, shore or shores of Lake Erie. It's neither here nor there.
Duffy.
That's where they'll play the football game, right along one of the Great Lakes. And unfortunately for the Browns, some not great news delivered yesterday with Deshaun Watson's season-ending shoulder injury and subsequent surgery. Now they're turning to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, which means this game went from being an expected Browns victory by some analysis. I don't know. I mean,
they were 4. I think they were 3 to 4 points.
Right now they're 1 point favorite.
Yeah. 1. That's what Watson is, even in his up and down season. That's what he was worth. 1 at home. You don't even get the home field advantage in the line there. So I think this is going to be a tight one, and I think it's going to be very interesting to watch because you got 2 solid defenses. Browns, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Steelers not too far behind, maybe not statistically, but they are opportunistic. What do they do to Pittsburgh's offense? Pittsburgh's offense, which has been stuck in the mud for the majority of the season, finally figured out how to run the football against the Packers last week. Are they able to replicate that again? Because if they do, then it shifts in favor of the Steelers. And if they don't, then I don't know what DTR is going to do. So I have no idea what this Browns offense is going to look like. We're in for an unpredictable affair on the shore or shores.
The over-under is a joke on this game. It's 33. We don't normally say the over-under for every game, but that
33?
That is a historically low number. I get it. I have more optimism about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Number one, because he played well enough in the preseason and in training camp to believe they really found their guy. They were so excited about him. They traded away Josh Dobbs, and there really was a lot of internal excitement that, I could
also tell you they have a bad eye.
Right. I'm just saying, he showed something.
Yeah.
He was an absolute disaster in that game that he started against the Ravens. He didn't know till that morning that he was playing, if you guys remember, and Watson practiced throughout the week, too. And the fact that they went back to him here shows a little bit of confidence. So I guess I'm just not assuming that he's a total train wreck. I'm allowing for a possibility that he could be effective, in part, Dan, because when I went back to watch, and I watched all of Watson's snaps on the coaches' film the last two weeks, because I'm just fascinated by this team, and Stefanski's coaching the hell out of this team. There are open guys. Even with backup tackles, they were winning the line of scrimmage against the Ravens, and a lot of it was first read, quick throws, good coaching all around. So I have some optimism that maybe he can coach around and that they'll at least be respectable, kind of like they were with P.J. Walker. It's like they weren't the worst offense in the league with P.J. Walker.
Yeah, and, it should also be pointed out that this Watson thing dropped like a hammer, so it's not like Thompson Robinson is getting a full week here either. It's kind of they're trying to get him up to speed, and I'm sure it's still a bit shocking that all of a sudden he's the guy again in the middle of this division race. But the Pittsburgh defense is, yes, as Shook said, if they're not statistically at the top, people that are watching these games, you understand that this is a defense that's getting better, making plays, and they have to because the Steelers have – this is a crazy stat, by the way. The Steelers have had fewer than 400 total yards in 57 straight games.
Ooh.
They are averaging just 318 yards per game in wins since 2022. That's the fewest in the NFL. They rank last in point differential, -26, and total yard difference, -865, among the current winning teams in 2023. And so they're averaging 17 points per game this season. So they are playing with fire, and they're getting by because they create turnovers. They have a +10 differential. They're tied with Cincinnati for number 1, 18 takeaways. And that's what's going to come down to, I think, in this game is, can the Pittsburgh defense once again pull a rabbit out of the hat and take advantage and feast upon a young quarterback without a lot of experience?
Right. Nick, I want your take on the Steelers offense because I actually think they've looked much better since their bye. That those stats, yes, they haven't top 400 yards. Like, they're not explosive, obviously, but they've run the ball really well the last 2 weeks, including against the Titans, who are a great run defense. Broderick Jones, their first-round pick, they put into the lineup. Daniel Jeremiah, who does the Chargers game. He's the Chargers.
No, Matt Money Smith does the.
No, it's also Jeremiah. Used to be a scout.
I don't think you're right about that.
Yeah, used to be a scout somewhere.
I think the info's off.
And Jalen Warren, they
cares about Jeremiah?
They started Jalen Warren over Najee Harris. They announced him as the starter, which was interesting. They told him before the game, you're going to get introduced with the starters over. And Pickett's been better actually since their bye week. I just went to check it. EPA per play on offense, 11th. Doesn't surprise me, Nick, because they're actually moving the ball. They're not explosive. They don't score touchdowns, but almost all their drives have 4 or 5 first downs, and they move it 40 yards, and then they kick a field goal. They're not that bad on offense. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy, and I think you just laid out exactly why they've made incremental improvements. Broderick Jones, one of my favorite tackles in this past class, all combine team member. Nice little plug there. He's made.
You make the all combine team, Shook?
Yes, I do.
That was quite a response.
I know you would appreciate it, Shooky, because nobody knows line play better than you. The pull that he had on that one Warren run, I believe, or maybe it was Harris last week. I was like, man, there are very few guys as athletic as that dude.
Yeah, and it's a great segue into why it really matters this offense is the fact that Jalen Warren's the better running back of the two, and they use them in a complementary role in the last week. And I think that going to Warren as your more explosive guy who's a little bit harder to bring down is the ideal thing to do. He's just got more juice in his legs right now. He's the one who's able to shoulder the load. It's not to say that Najee's not going to be a part of it, but both of them matter a lot because when they couldn't run the football, when they didn't have Broderick Jones in the lineup, it was all on Kenny Pickett. And it's on Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada, who is one of the play callers you don't want to pick. He's about last on the list for you to call a play on 3rd and 11 or even 3rd and 2 when the game's on the line, as they saw in week 2 against the Browns. So the running game has been the most important part for them. It's given Kenny a little bit more time, a little bit less pressure to go be a hero. But again, I do have issues with them because when they're still, behind the sticks, it often just resorts to Kenny dropping back and throwing a bomb down the sideline to either Deontay Johnson or George Pickens in one-on-one. And, you got a 50-50 shot at best at some of those plays, but they're in a better spot now than they were before. And I think that actually speaks to why the Browns went to DTR because PJ Walker has been a turnover machine in his games. Yeah, he's kind of, kept them going a little bit, but he's turned the ball over a ton. This is a Steelers defense that's going to turn you over. And if their offense has gotten even a little bit better, suddenly you're on the flip side of that and you're looking at an uphill battle. So it's going to be interesting, guys.
Greg, you wanted PJ Walker to be good so bad. He's your guy. He's right up your alley.
I was pretty hot. I was pretty excited about DTR in the preseason. I have some tweets I regret about that. So I'm excited. I just, I wish for him that he had easier matchups in his first 2 games, division matchups against good defense.
The 3rd overall pick goes to Greg.
Okay, I am going to take the Houston Texans, nearly the team of ATL, 5-point favorites.
Always the bridesmaid.
At home against the Cardinals. And I'm surprised they're only 5-point favorites. That is what you're saying. That's a bad 3 pick.
No, it just tells you a lot about the week.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. My next pick actually maybe is a better game, but this one has Kyler.
Yep.
And this one has C.J. Stroud. So just looking for entertainment value early, I think this is going to be a watchable game. And I think, we've talked about how fun the Texans are to watch every week. Stroud is better over the last few weeks, I believe, because the line is healthier. That's made a huge difference for them. And I think about this matchup against the Cardinals and their defense, which does not get a lot of pressure on you. Stroud has gone from good if by the eye test and good on film to the numbers are outrageous because, oh, by the way, he has an all-pro left tackle and the rest of the line's healthy. Shaq Mason's playing well this year and they're in a different spot and you're going against a Cardinals defense that is still terrible. They still can't stop anyone, including even the Falcons last week. And so I think this is going to be a fun game to go watch my guy Tank Dell be better than anyone gave him any right to be. I think it's been a fun little story, Nick, but I think he has a little more staying power as a difference-making wide receiver.
Your guy, my guy.
I don't know.
All combine team. Another one right there.
Oh, Shookie's on fire right now.
I'm on fire. He's one of the receivers that I thought would make the quickest jump in the NFL because his route running is so precise. He's in great sync with C.J. Stroud. They're a really fun pairing to watch. And C.J. Stroud's a blast to watch with everybody he throws the football to. It's been Noah Brown for the last 2 weeks because he didn't have Nico Collins last week.
It sounds like he won't again, most likely. Nico Collins missing practice. He got hurt in practice.
And that doesn't worry me at all.
Yeah, not in this matchup at least, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it go ahead.
No, I was finish that point. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's interesting because you have two quarterbacks that are on trajectories in this game with CJ, who's having a great year, who's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But then you have Kyler, who, he didn't throw a touchdown pass in his return game, but he looked good. He looked fresh, healthy, could operate this offense. And you could tell how badly the Cardinals needed him. So I'm not counting the Cardinals out of this game, but I think the quarterback duo, the battle here is just really intriguing for a game that on paper otherwise doesn't seem really all that captivating.
Yeah, and I did and there was a quote along those lines with a conversation Gannon and Kyler had before his return, basically turn me loose. Let me be Kyler. I don't want to be a minimized version of myself to protect my body. They're going to really get a look at him here, so we're going to see if he continues to move well, because I thought he really did look good in that first game. On the Texans side, yeah, we talked about Noah Brown, who's producing CeeDee Lamb the last couple of weeks. I don't exactly expect that to continue, but I think that's such a sign, and you give Noah Brown a ton of credit, but that when you have a big-time quarterback, how he can elevate players from Jags to something much more. And the running game, I want to see if this continues because there was a lot of excitement. I don't know, excitement's a strong word, around Dameon Pierce, but an idea that Pierce was a guy that could be a Pro Bowl level running back or something in that world, and it really didn't happen, and then he got beat up. He's missed 2 games with an ankle. Devin Singletary has a huge game last week. If they can really, Greg, get the running game in concert with Stroud, we are cooking, and we might actually have something for real here in Houston.
Yeah, I think they have a chance to win this division. They beat the Jaguars already. I don't think the Jaguars are great, and this is an interesting test, kind of a first test for them. They're on this roll. They're favored in this game. They need it to get to 6-4 and really get themselves entrenched in this playoff race. You can't slip up. And the thing that's got to make the difference for them down the stretch, can their defense matter? They've been a very up and down defense. Some days they'll create a lot of plays. Some days they've been steamrolled, like against Tampa Bay. And if D'Amico Ryans gets that group, and it's a very young team, they've played more rookies overall than any team in the NFL. If they can get their defense to matter a little bit, to be feisty down the stretch, to be average or a little bit better, then we're talking about a team that can go ahead and win a division, Shook, and can make some noise.
Yeah, I think that quarterback play alone plus a defense that has some potential gets into the conversation. They're a game behind the Jaguars right now, and if they rolled the ball out right now and played, I would have a tough time picking either team. In fact, I might even lean Texans just with the way they've been playing they
trounced them the first time too. As a little bit of a kind of this is something.
I just think of the symmetry. They just missed out on the first overall pick and then took Stroud with the 2. They just missed out on being the team of ATN. They finished second there, too. The chip on the shoulder of the Houston Texans is something to keep an eye on as well.
3 straight home games, including the Jaguars next week, so that's a big game next week. Okay, I am going to take the Seahawks, a 1-point favorite, across the sidewalk against the Rams.
Okay.
Always one of my favorite matchups. I went and when they used to remember they used to fly me to games sometimes to like cover them just as a reporter.
God, I think about it all the time. Pinch me.
I was there when the Rams won the division in Seattle years back, and I always think Sean McVay owns Pete Carroll, and it happened again in Week 1. He's owned this matchup in general. So why I'm a little surprised the Seahawks are 1-point favorites here, because the Rams are 3-6, the Seahawks are 6-3, but I don't see these teams as too far apart when you have a healthy Matthew Stafford, who is practicing fully this week. He is back, and it is a monster game for both these teams. If the Rams want any hope of kind of sneaking into the 7 race, they got to win this week. They got the Cardinals and then DTR the next week. Potential for a run. The Seahawks after this week have 49ers at Dallas, at 49ers, Eagles. It could get dark if you don't win this game, and I can't imagine, Shook, that like Seahawks fans feel incredibly confident about this game because they're not rushing the passer well. And if you don't get after Stafford, he can do things like what happened in Week 1 when it was the Puka Nacua breakout party. Now he's got Puka and Cooper Kupp to go against this defense.
What, you mean you didn't see Leonard Williams' first sack as a Seahawk last week? What's going on?
Okay. I didn't see a lot.
I'm just kidding.
It wasn't that exciting.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I was curious about this line because if you look at the Rams on the surface, you think, well, the Seahawks are in a better position than them, but they got the return of Matt Stafford at the worst possible time. I mean, they could have had Brett Rippon. They could have had anybody else they signed off the street play quarterback for the Rams, and you think it's an easy Seahawks win, but because Stafford comes back, all of a sudden, everything is back in play. And you talked about the history with Sean McVay versus the Seahawks. So I think that kind of adds an element of surprise and intrigue to this game that otherwise on paper doesn't look all that great. I'm just happy to see Stafford back. I hope he's fully healthy. I want to see him throw the ball down the field.
These are two of my favorite teams to watch.
There's a bit of a Rosenthal tag when the Rams are involved.
And the Seahawks. These are two entertaining teams to watch. They can throw the football.
No, we could understand the Seahawks side of it, but you have there's a Rams Rosie tax. But with Stafford back, yes, I just hope he comes back and he's Stafford that we saw earlier in the season, and not a guy that's a 30-something quarterback who's starting to get beat up as the season goes along, because he has been. There's an issue with, keeping him clean here. He's been pressured on over 42% of his dropbacks this year. That's third highest in the NFL. That can't be happening with Stafford. And he's not the type of quarterback that can endure that. And Seattle's, the data points backs up that Seattle has a pass rush here, that they're top 5 in sacks.
I swear it's all from that Giants game. It's like they got 14 sacks that day, and it was like it.
They're top 10 in sack percentage rate. So it's not like they're foreign to getting to the quarterback, but I think that's the key here. And I'll be watching to see if Stafford actually looks like Stafford, because the Rams being watchable at all kind of hinges on him.
Yes, and Geno, similarly, like most quarterbacks, it's all about the pressure rate. Like he entered last week, Dan. I think it was top 4 in terms of the pressure rate he's faced this year. And he's just not the same guy. He's not making decisions. He's trying to get rid of the ball. The Rams don't have a great pass rush. They have Aaron Donald. They have Byron Young, but they're inconsistent overall as a team. If you protect Geno, you can build on what happened last week. So kind of whichever team, to me, can get a little heat. The Seahawks have more money invested, more picks invested up front. Like they should be better and should get after Stafford. I guess I like the Seahawks to even it out, but I don't feel confident in this at all, Shook. Who would you pick?
I'm going to go Seahawks. It's contingent upon whether the Seattle coaching staff gets a little bit more of the rollout game going for Geno. It's not that it's his greatest strength necessarily, but I think you're going to have to roll him away from some interior pressure. And, you saw that touchdown pass in that highlight there. That would look good if they did that a little bit more often instead of asking him to just drop back and find somebody down the field. It's up and down, not to the extremes with him, but there are games in which he's great on the first scripted drive, and then you get to the second quarter and the third quarter and he disappears, and then he wakes up in the fourth quarter and leads another great 1 or 2 drives to get them, close to winning or winning the game. It's not super consistent, but I also understand everything that's going around him right now. And if I have to compare that to the Rams, I don't know the condition Stafford's in. He's been out for a while. I'm going to go Seahawks.
I've already rethought it. I'm going to pick the Rams on NFL Game Day View. Everyone should check that out Friday afternoons.
Good
on
plug.
NFL Network.
And Shook mentioned that he saw it on the video there, a highlight. That this show every Thursday is on a fast channel. In addition to, where else, Eric? Give me all the data points necessary to get this plug right. of our own brand.
Well, fast is an overall encompassing kind of
Yes.
thing. So, you like your apps, your NFL.
Any
Network
fast
apps.
channel.
Yes. And then we're also
the NFL channel,
Yeah, the
whether
NFL
you got
channel.
Roku. I
Yeah.
got Roku.
So
You can't get this on like the Baywatch channel, which my
No.
TV defaults to.
No.
But it's a lot of good stuff in that.
Yeah. And then
Defaults.
obviously YouTube, of course.
Can I just say, like, I just asked for the plug and now I'm going to ruin it. I turned on my TV today. Always defaults to the Baywatch channel. I don't change it. And on today's episode, and most of these were shot in the early 90s, David Spade, the SNL actor, comedian, plays the heavy. He plays a bully on the beach. And you just want to think Spade.
What?
Spade would be playing the heavy, but he did. And
He was kind of a bully, but yeah, I hear you.
what is like the Showtime minute thing from?
Yeah, just that he would
Weekend
always
Update?
make fun
Yeah.
of people, you know.
But he was playing like the heavy, like the enforcer. And I was like, oh, that maybe we could have went in a different direction with the casting on that one.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
so where do people
Yeah.
see this?
YouTube, fast channels, NFL Network, all that fun
Okay,
stuff.
good.
NFL.com. There you go.
Last couple thoughts. Aaron Donald on a heater. He has 3 sacks in the last 2 weeks. He leads the Rams, as you would expect, in hurries and sacks with 5.5. And the 12s will represent in this game. We might get 40,000 Seattle fans in that building. So I think that could swing it. I got the Seahawks by a field goal. What's the spread on it?
It's
1.
Seahawks by 1.
All right, let's take a break, and then we will continue the draft. All right, we are back. We are back. You would think with the Baywatch episodes that they would lean really hard on shark attacks, but they really do restrain themselves.
Maybe this
Shark
is
stuff.
like a kind of a smart TV. You know, it's kind of like your Instagram algorithm.
Right.
They realize if they start the Baywatch, you'll watch for 20 minutes.
Right.
So you're feeding into it. You're like one of those guys who's like, how come they keep showing me all this, messed up stuff on my Instagram algorithm? It's like, that's because that's what you like.
I want to make it clear also, though, because I remember as I lived through it, I grew up during when Baywatch was the biggest show in the world in syndication. Never watched the show. And
No.
people that watch it were like, oh, look at the babes on the show. And sure, CJ, played by Pam Anderson, total babe. But I watch it for the plot. There's just, it's wild, the writing on that show. Please check out Baywatch on the fast channels, but mostly check out our show. Start with our show and then check in on Baywatch. All right, now let's get back to the draft. Shooky.
We
Yeah.
are going Buccaneers, 49ers.
Okay.
In a
Okay.
game that you look at and think, I don't know. Why would you pick that so early? And I'm
There's
picking it
only
for
3
one
late games.
reason.
You got to pick one of them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are beholden to that late schedule. I would love to see Baker Mayfield put together a game that finally convinces the doubters, including those in Tampa, that he is good enough to be their quarterback. Now, he's dealt with a lot of struggles on the
Okay.
offensive side, many of them not his fault. They can't run the football. I feel like I just keep talking about teams that can't run the football today, but the Buccaneers certainly cannot run the football. He also had to deal with Mike Evans drops last week. It's been kind of up and down, but he's a gamer. He's scrappy. That's what made people love him in Cleveland, and they would have loved him in Carolina, but he wasn't on the field for all that long before he was replaced.
Well, he
and
was
they're going to love him in
terrible.
Tampa. And this is going to be the game why. I know, Greg, and I'm just going to push all that away because I'm not even a Baker fan, but I think he deserves a little bit more credit than what he's gotten for his performance this year. And what better way to do it than against the 49ers, who, by the way, I don't think the Buccaneers are going to win this game, but it would be fun to see that happen. And it would also be a little bit concerning for the 49ers, who just dominated the Jaguars last weekend.
Well, how many years has Baker been in the NFL now? Is this his
18 was his first.
So this is his best year
6.
since 18, and there's not even a debate about it. He is playing consistent, and I would dare say winning football, like not making bad decisions, getting rid of the ball in time, occasionally a big-time play. Like if you put this version of Baker Mayfield, and then you also sent Dave Canales, who I think's done a nice job as the offense coordinator. Hell, send the Bucs offensive line too. We're totally changing this scenario, but you sent them to the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
They're 7-3. Like he is playing Dalton scale median starter football that you can actually. I think he's been pretty reliable, Dan. You kind of know what you're getting each week. He hasn't had any really bad games.
I've had a total turnaround in my viewpoint of Baker this season. I was never a big fan of his. Even last year, I thought it was oversold a little bit, the excitement around the Rams cameo, which had a couple moments, but also a lot of
was
bad
oversold.
Baker.
Yeah.
But this Baker has really, I don't know, I've just been impressed. He's kind of doing it. I think it helps him that it's just a little lower profile. It's down in the NFC South, and he's He has some dogs to throw to, and he's not perfect because he never has been and never will be. But playing in that division with the talent that he has around him, which isn't an overwhelming amount of talent, but enough. I think there's a compelling kind of fun nature to their offense that takes on his personality.
And now they have to play the 49ers.
I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Now they have to play the 49ers and Javon Hargrave and this defensive line who's kind of getting the second time around, Nick, like of their fully formed group with Chase Young.
Yeah, they were pretty scary last week, and I expect them to only get better going forward. It's going to be a real test of the Buccaneers' offensive line because whether they can run the ball or not, they're going to have to protect Baker Mayfield. They have to do enough offensively to stay in this game. Their defense has been pretty good for the most part, save for that Houston game this year. So I think that they'll be competitive on that side of the ball, but man, it's really going to come down to whether they can protect Baker. He's got the ability in him to extend the play and avoid these situations, but he's prone to make that turnover and try to be a hero. He's best when he operates in control. That's when he's really gotten this offense going. I think the Niners are going to do a really good job of getting him out of control, and it could get ugly.
They are 12-point favorites, the 49ers, in this game, which is crazy. I did want to mention the last few weeks, Kalijah Cansey, their first-round pick, 5 tackles for loss in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Vita Vea is playing like peak Vita Vea. And so suddenly you got those two guys. You got Shaq Barrett. You got Yaya Diaby. I mean, what a name. Making some plays over the last couple of you can kind of see it. Bowles was extremely aggressive last week against the Titans, but that was a rookie quarterback. Will he stay that way? They're starting to build something.
Yeah, and
I think they're the best team in the division, even though they're about to be 4-6.
Yeah, and on the Niners side again with watching Brock Purdy, and that was an important game for him coming off the bye in a 3-game losing streak, and then his first red zone throw, he's flushed out of the pocket. He's heading towards the sideline. He sets his feet. He throws late and across the middle into coverage, and somehow it rests in the hands of Brandon Ayuk in the back of the end zone. And then they made a good point on the Fox telecast, which was, heads up on this. He threw 33 interceptions at Iowa State. So he is always going to be kind of putting the ball for grabs at times. But then I thought he played a really, really strong game overall, including the touchdown pass to George Kittle was just a thing of beauty. So I'll be interested to see if he starts to get on a heater again. But I guess we should be understanding that interceptions are going to be part of his game and not to be too shaded by them because he's not afraid to take chances.
Let's go Bolza-sans.
He's going to have opportunities.
Make this a game. Make this a game.
Defenses will always have opportunities against Brock Purdy. Do we have, by the way, because it was funny watching it, because this was the last game I watched. I watched it this morning, actually. They took Purdy out of the game. It's a blowout. They're killing the Jaguars. And they put in the backup quarterback, but they still have the highest paid running back in the history of football out there trying to set the consecutive touchdown streak record. He was tied. And he couldn't do it, and it was painful because in the last possession he gets brought down. I think it was an incompletion right near the goal line. I like the quote by CMC after his streak was snapped.
Yeah, I suck. Everyone else on the team scored, except for me.
When the fullback scores on a 20-yard touchdown pass and you don't get the end zone, it might be time to step away. But I don't know. I thought it was also funny that. And, keeping it real, like Kyle Shanahan was like, no, I got to get this dog a score, even if it risked everything. And it's funny how they won't let these guys play in the preseason. Right. But if there's an individual record on the line, you're running them out there 37-3.
Right. And he immediately, when he shook hands with Doug Peterson, was trying to explain, hey, I hope you understand what we were doing. We were trying. He's like, yeah, I understood it, bro. And then just wanted no part.
Screw you, man. All right, let's move on.
It was 4th down, by the way.
It was 4th.
I mean, he did 4 straight plays. The whole thing was just so.
It was 4th down.
I didn't hate it.
That was a bad job by me. I sometimes you leave on Sunday nights and you think I left that one on the table. Forgot to mention that.
Well, look, this is why we're a team. Came back,
thanks, bro.
Took care of it. Right up top, bro. There we go.
What is this? This is gross. What are you doing?
I gave him a lot of extra touches of his fingers. All right, let's move on. See, that's why you got to check out this show. And if we can get a tight shot, a replay maybe at the end of the show, that'd be amazing. I'm up. I got a double dip here, and let's start with, I like this. No one took Chargers, Packers?
That's right.
I'm surprised. Still there. Chargers getting 3 points here. I agree with what you said. We were doing our little what you people don't realize, Greg. I was really encouraged by Jordan Love's performance last week. I know that they didn't win, but you really saw him seeing the field well, I thought, making some, going through progressions, buying time. He's obviously got a great arm, and I'm not saying he's perfect, and he's not. And, of course, you can't not look at the 2 targets at Watson late that cost him the game. But from a broader scope, I think there is room for growth there. So here they are getting a chance against the Chargers and a much maligned shook Chargers defense that Brandon Staley now is starting to feel the heat and answering questions about what changes are you going to make. He is the defensive-minded coach. So I think there is a path here for the Packers to gain some momentum on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. This is not a shot across the bow toward you and your Jets, Dan, but I had to write a post last week about Brandon Staley believing that the Chargers were turning a corner defensively because their pass rush was there and everyone's healthy and everything's great.
Right.
I'm sitting back thinking, man, you played the Jets offense.
Yep.
This is not going to last. You guys are a sieve, and they were a sieve, of course, this week. So I do think it's a good opportunity for the Packers. And the thing about Love that really I'm internally conflicted on this. I have been for most of the year because this is how he played in week 1 to week 2 to week 3. He shows these performances where he's hitting guys down the field, dropping passes into the bucket, looking great, showing off the arm strength. He's throwing a pass while he's falling away downfield, putting it exactly where Jaden Reed needs to catch it. I mean, it was all good stuff, but then there's the turnovers, and it's the end of game stuff that has killed them this year. And I'm just not ready to get on board yet. I need a complete game from him front to back against a team that is not named the Chicago Bears for me to fully believe in him. And this could be the moment. I know that the Chargers don't wear blue and orange. They wear powder blue and sometimes navy blue and gold, and they have a bad defense. But that could be enough of an optic switch for me to maybe just start to believe in Jordan Love. If they just tighten up some things, figure some things out, clean it up a little bit, the short completions that end up incomplete because they bounce off of receivers' hands, whatever it is, I'll feel a lot better, even though their season is not really going anywhere. I'll feel better about his trajectory, and this seems like the right situation for it.
Yeah, this has potential to be an ugly loss for the Chargers. I feel like basically the rest of this season, anytime the Chargers are a game under 500, I mean, they can't afford to get there again too often. Like, it's starting to feel like go time for Staley. Like, he kind of can't lose these games anymore, especially his defense coming up short. I just don't know who they are. I kind of bought that their defense was playing better because Bosa looked better, and they should have a good pass rush, but they got stoned last week against the Lions offensive line. The Packers offensive line's actually been playing a little better lately. Their defense gives up a ton on the ground, like every handful of games. They gave up over 200, the Packers defense, but I just don't trust Eckler and their running game to take advantage. Eckler, though, last week I thought had as much juice as I saw all season. On the other side, Aaron Jones might be becoming like a little bit of a problem there for him. I just don't think he's the same guy. There was a play he was caught from behind by a Landon Roberts last week, and I was like, whoa. I've watched enough of a Landon Roberts in New England knowing like he should not be catching Aaron Jones from behind.
This is a bit of I talked about it, what you people don't realize, how many coaches have hot butts entering the second half. And I do think, Brandon Staley, definitely. If the Packers don't find a way in this game, they would be 3-7 at that point. They're really taking on water in terms of this season, and just something to keep an eye on. So, interesting.
Guys, how early is it to dirt nap somebody?
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Like stick a fork in them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How early?
You could do it right now.
We already had an episode. Which one of the Packers would not be a bold one. Are you sticking a fork in them?
That doesn't. No, I'm sticking a fork in the Chargers.
Ooh.
You just said it. You don't know who they are. They don't know who they are. They need Keenan Allen to be a superhero to go win a shootout. Or actually, they lost the shootout, but to at least be competitive.
Or Herbert. Give me more of that Herbert, though. There was a point in that game where I think he realized what type of game he was in, and he was just kind of F you, Herbert.
More of that.
Yep.
More of that. A little less safe. But I'm with you. I picked them to make the Super Bowl in this AFC where they're like 11th right now and there's so many teams. It was such a bad prediction. I feel very confident they are not making the playoffs, even though they're actually about a 35% chance according to the projection models. To me, that feels
35% chance of what?
making the playoffs, which is like the
I
same.
thought you had Super Bowl. Hell no.
No, of making the playoffs, which is like the same as the Bengals and some of the teams in front of them, like the Texans. And I don't see it. I'm with you. They'll probably get to 9 wins because that's the most annoying way for them to do it. But they're not gonna. It's not gonna happen.
Smart football Twitter. Every year, you guys get sucked in by the Chargers. Every single summer.
I've taken a couple years off, and then I thought, okay, nobody's on them this year. I'm coming back. And then
everybody pours over the DVOA and this and that, and then all of a sudden.
But the Ravens were sitting right there because we usually love the Ravens too, and they were sitting right there.
All right. Snakes to me, and I just had to grab another game here. I'm going to be in New York this weekend. I'm taking the boys to see my family, so might as well just grab the other tri-state area team, the New York Giants at Washington. I like this. I don't care anything about the Giants, although I like the specter of Tommy DeVito. And we're going to talk about Tommy DeVito on the NFL Plus Dreamatorium episode coming up later today. But on the Washington side, I do want to see more from Sam Howell, as Colleen Wolfe rightly pointed out on Wednesday's episode. He leads the league in passing right now. He is playing a little bit smarter, taking less sacks in recent weeks. And on paper, this could be a game, Greggy, where Howell lights up the Giants and at home, and all of a sudden he becomes something like more people are talking about. People are realizing the kind of season that Howell is quietly having here. It seems like a nice setup for him to really roll.
Yeah, this defense for the Giants, so they had that 1 or 2 weeks where they were capable, but Adoree Jackson is coming off a concussion. So is Kayvon Thibodeau. So is Jalen Hyatt. So they're banged up on top of everything else. This line actually started with them as like a 10.5-point favorites, which is crazy that the Commanders would be a 10.5-point favorite over anyone. It's actually dipped, I noticed now.
Is Mark Rippon the quarterback?
Right, it's at 8.5, but that just shows you where the Giants are at, and I get it. If you gave Howell a better defense, they would have been good. Like, the recipe was actually there for them, Nick, that if they weren't like the 25th best defense in the league, the offense is giving them enough, but the defense just isn't. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, who are getting paid a lot, have had very little production over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So they trade away the edge guys, and the guys on the interior who get a ton of money aren't really playing that well.
Yeah, and then I see this week they're working out another edge rusher, like they're already looking for plan B after trading away both those edge rushers. It's very obvious with them. It's a bummer because Sam Howell's exceeded every expectation I ever had for him by miles. And he's getting better and better in the last few weeks, even though they only have 1 win to show for it. He's been accurate. He's made great throws. He's operated out of structure really well. Everything that Ron Rivera, was saying was great about this kid, about somebody that he believes could be the future of the franchise. It's just that if they don't start winning games, and Ron Rivera's not going to be around to see it through.
They'll get to 5 and 6 if they win this. So that's sort of that's barely in the mix, but it's in the mix.
And
they'll win this one.
And we talked about a couple weeks ago, like, if you believe you have something in this young quarterback, you really want to think twice about blowing up the entire coaching staff and the offensive scheme, and maybe should give this kid a chance to mature in the system. And I guess it's up to them to finish strong and make a difficult decision for new ownership. Terry McLaurin is an interesting guy in this offense because he is the best player on the offense, and yet he doesn't seem to get the ball enough. He actually had 90 yards against the Giants in week 7. That's his season high. He doesn't have a 100-yard game.
Whoa.
But this also, I think, kind of speaks to Howell, that he's not a young quarterback just laser locking in one guy. The Commanders have 6 players that are over 250 yards receiving this year. That's the most in the NFL. There's no other team that even has more than 5. So he is seeing the field, spreading the ball around. And would you like to see Scary Terry win a game single-handedly? Because he can. Yes, maybe that happens today. How about that for a prediction? 10 for 140 and a touch for Scary Terry.
All right. I'm putting him into my fantasy lineup then.
Oh, no, don't do that.
Well, he has been. He's been.
Okay.
He's
Nostra Hanzus.
I got to play him. Shout out to Saquon, by the way. I think he is playing awesome, as consistent as I think he's ever been in the NFL. Not taking the tackles for loss, like taking what's there, getting extra, running really hard in a completely unfair, brutal situation. So I appreciate that. The numbers aren't going to be crazy this year, but I think he's as good as he's ever.
I agree. And if you go back to one of the most grisly games in NFL history, Jets-Giants, I think one of the great feats that you will ever see is Saquon going for 120 or 130, whatever it was, when DeVito was in the lineup and they wouldn't let him throw. And that's a good Jets front seven. And he still was finding holes and should have been able to put the game away, but that's a whole other conversation. Brian Daboll made a different decision. All right, Shook, you are up, buddy.
We are going to go down the list to the old AFC South. We're going Titans, Jaguars, because who needs a bounce-back performance more than the team that only put 3 points on the board at home last week? It's the Jacksonville Jaguars.
What a joke. What a joke that game was by the Jags. Show up,
oh, what
guys.
A joke. Yeah, it was bad. Trevor Lawrence is healthy enough to not be on the injury report, but not healthy enough to be as mobile as he needs to be behind an offensive line that's just not protecting well enough. The running game has disappeared for the most part. Dearness Johnson was the one carrying the load for them on the ground. So that's everything that you need to know about that. And defensively, a team that was very opportunistic about a month ago and suddenly isn't producing quite as many turnovers as you expect. I feel like I didn't see the Jaguars for like a month, even though I watch them every week. Going into this game. And when I watched this game, I thought this team's 6-2.
I know.
Like they're having a hard time. Everything's hard for them. So they need to bounce back.
They disappeared to England and won twice, to their credit. But and then they came back and there was a bye. Greg, I think Wes used to call it the Bermuda Triangle. I think the Jags were one of these teams that kind of just didn't get the national spotlight. And we said it on Sunday, is this going to be now when it starts, like the heat around Trevor Lawrence? Like, look at all his stats are really, really middle of the road as a producer in what was supposed to be a big year. We have not heard the avalanche of criticism on Lawrence, I don't think. And I think it factors in that he plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
So maybe that works out for once.
Well, this is one of those games, Titans at Jaguars, because, it's kind of the Titans' last stand if they want to be at all involved in this division. Levis had a big comeback-to-earth game last week, and this is a tough matchup against a defense that until last week had been playing so well. But Lawrence plays like an old Doug Peterson quarterback. I was trying to think who this offense reminded me of, and it reminded me of the Kansas City Chiefs with Alex Smith for those first 2 to 3 years, which was efficient, which was a little better than average, actually. Like they weren't bad. At the last season, Smith actually started bombing and playing out of his mind, but he was there for 4 years. People kind of forget how long of a run that was for Alex Smith there. And that was Doug Peterson running those plays. And that's what it reminds me of, because it's all horizontal. It's all getting rid of the ball. They don't trust their offensive line. Ben Solak of the Ringer had a good stat that they run the fewest amount of routes past 20 yards, and that their average depth of targets are shorter than the rest of the league by far. Like, there's not even a second closest team that's in the ballpark. And that's like with Trevor Lawrence. Like, why is he playing like Alex Smith? It's not good. Zay Jones, we should have mentioned previously, was arrested. Actually, I think we just missed it with the time it happened, on a misdemeanor domestic battery charge, something involving his mother. A disturbing, sad story, but he is on the practice field this week, and I think they're going to play him. He's missed 6 games, was a key part of their offense a year ago in a row. So that's a messy situation, but it doesn't look like the league's going to step in.
I thought, watching that Niners game, and it happens. The game got away from them. They're against a Studley Niners team that was pissed off, coming off a 3-game losing streak and a bye. But even when the game, they're down 4 scores, and then they should be like at least getting, some type of like momentum. It's 3rd and 17. It's like fourth and 21, and you're throwing a 3-yard check down pass. There was nothing there. And the data around Lawrence is he's been one of the worst quarterbacks in the league against the blitz this year. And I think one player, Shook, that kind of is emblematic of their bad season they're having. Their tight end, Evan Ingram, who I've always liked, he leads the team in receptions. He doesn't even have a touchdown this year. There's just no juice to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that was not supposed to be the case here.
This is a conflict I deal with every week with QB Index, because the tape for most of his season has been better than the numbers suggested. But almost every game, and there was a very specific stretch of about 3 or 4 weeks, a month or so ago, where it was just near misses. Everything was just not quite where it needed to be, whether it was a receiver dropping a well-placed pass or Lawrence just missing a guy, not giving him enough space to catch the ball, or not getting the ball out in time, or throwing interceptions, whatever it was, just didn't quite fit. I thought they were starting to ascend and figure it out and then they put a performance on like this. So I want to think that this is the fluke. This is the anomaly. It's the aberration, and that they're gonna get back on track. They're gonna beat the Titans, but they're also gonna face a front that could capitalize on a weak offensive line. So it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be a challenge for them. Greg, you talked about everything being horizontal with that offense. I was so frustrated watching them. Why are you trying another screen for the 9th time when you know they're going to be there to blow it up? They had no reason to respect the deep shot. You have Christian Kirk on this team. You have Calvin Ridley on this team. These guys are fast. Take a shot. Why not? You have nothing to lose. So do that a little bit more. You'll probably get back to your winning ways.
This is for the Titans fans, Shook. You do the QB index, and you do it well every week on NFL.com. Levis did come back to earth, and he didn't have a big statistical game against the Steelers the week before, but was a monster. His debut, obviously. Is the juice out of that orange as well? Or can is there something looking forward to?
It's just one game. That's just he's played 3. 2 have been good.
So I'm asking the Mr. QB index.
Sorry.
I think the Steelers game was up and down, but there was a lot to like in that game. The Tampa game, they just blitzed the crap out of him. I mean, they blitzed it over 50%. They knew that, look, we're going to stop the run and we're just going to send the house at Will Levis and force him to make a decision. And to his credit, he stood tall in the pocket and tried to get the ball out, on target a number of times, but that offense was just cut at the knees, and they just didn't have much of an opportunity to keep up in a game that wasn't really a high scoring affair. So I kind of foresee a similar product this week, probably another touchdown than they scored last week, just because it's a division game that tends to happen. But the juice is not out of the fruit here. Because what else are you going to do? You're going to go back to Ryan Tannehill? You might as well keep letting the kid play and at least give you a shot.
I watched that game and I
somebody,
thought, if Tannehill was in there, would they be in that particular game? He probably would have handled that better because he's seen defenses like that.
They might have scored 10,
but I wouldn't want to go back. Levis showed too much.
Speaking of juice, we got juice in the legs of Derrick Henry in November 2023. Still got the juice in those legs. I don't know about that either.
A weird team. Jaguars favored by 7 in this game. That's too much for a division matchup.
All right, let's take a break and we'll finish out the draft. All right, we are back, Greg. Once again, back-to-back picks.
Let's welcome the Miami Dolphins back into our lives.
Okay.
I missed them. They went to Germany.
Didn't go so well.
Took a week off. 13.5-point favorites over the Raiders. Wow.
Miami.
That's a lot. But they did have a great injury report, I would say, this week with
incredible injury
Devon A-Chain returning. They still have more injuries than you would like coming off a bye week. Like the Chiefs literally don't have a player on their injury report. It's like, wow, it's week 11. And that's happening.
That's remarkable.
I know. The Dolphins still have like 5 or 6 guys who aren't practicing, but they're all role players. A-Chain looks like he's back, and Armstead has been limited in practice, and that would be the biggest return for them. They're going up against a defense, which I think Patrick Graham has gotten the most out of. Max Crosby having an insane year. But when Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are saying, hey, Antonio Pierce told me, he went to Robert Spillane and he said, Robert, this defense is on you. That's our guy. If we want to build around one guy, it's Spillane. And I'm thinking, I get it. There's
not many over here.
Not many options, but they're overachieving. And when you play a team like the Dolphins, even if the Dolphins were 22nd in EPA on offense from week 7 to 9, their last 3 games, which are tough matchups, I expect we get a return to the fun fire show against the bad team Dolphins. And I like that as my backup early game. That'll be fun.
Does that justify that line there? That's a big spread. 13, that's disrespectful in the NFL. This is a Raiders team
go ahead.
that is playing for its coach. I'm just kidding. That's all I'm going.
It's a little disrespectful, but I get it because of the way Miami's played bad teams at home.
It's on brand. They've proven they can bully teams that are at this level and below. And at home, coming off a week of rest, I think the Sharks have this one nailed. I think this one's got the Raiders come down to earth and maybe 21-3 at end of quarter 1 written all over it.
I can't disagree. I mean, I think the Raiders, you guys see this from time to time when a coach gets fired, right? There's a little bit of juice, a little spark.
Sure.
Players play for their interim coach because
they call it the Bisaccia bump
is gone.
Chuck.
Exactly. You're right. I should have used
There's Ben Lieberberg.
If you watch on our YouTube show, you can see, actually you can't see us because they're showing Antonio Pierce right in the background, our longtime friend and NFL photographer, Ben Lieberberg.
Who's never listened to the show, and I never see him anymore because he's in a different part of the complex. But Ben, we're talking about you.
How about Michael Mayer playing better? last few weeks. Josh Jacobs playing better. Certainly the defense under Pierce. So if I had to choose, and I guess I do, I have to pick a score for this game. I'm going to have the Raiders keeping it closer, like 11 points. Think under that
just
number.
fair.
Want everyone to just, including you, Greg, because you need to pick the score. All this optimism around the Raiders is still not a good roster with a mid-round pick rookie quarterback, coach with no experience, and then 2 wins against the New York teams in various states of distress.
At home, which is actually a legit.
At home.
Legit. Home
This
field.
this is screaming at us. Hey, 50 burger coming.
Okay, let's get there too. The Dolphins, while they've been chilling, have watched the Bills lose a couple games here, and they would be 2 games up in the loss column in the division if they can win this game. It is right there in front of them for them to have a home game in the playoffs. It has been a long time for the Dolphins to have a home game in the playoffs.
If the Raiders
I don't know when it was.
If the Raiders stifle Miami here, I will personally apologize to Antonio Pierce and make sure that clip gets to Raiders headquarters. All right, Greg, snakes to you.
Okay. I am going to take, what am I going to take? Bears and Lions. Actually, that's a pretty good game with Justin Fields returning. 7.5 points for the Lions at home. That feels about right. This is a team that you can't really trust their offense. I mean, defense on a week-to-week basis. Like, are they going to get enough pressure? Justin Fields had been playing better. It's easy to forget, but he had those 2 big games in a row right before he got hurt. And they've looked better as a team in general. They're good at stopping the run. They've been more competitive when other teams get back to pass in terms of their pass rush. Not great, but they had Montez Sweat. And competitive, even with Tyson Bagent at quarterback. They win a couple games. So this is a division matchup. These 2 sides, they know each other pretty well from the Eberflus matchups a year ago. And I want to see Fields. I want to see him play well down the stretch. The Bears want to see it too because, look, they're in a perfect spot. They got that Panthers pick. That's going to be the quarterback. And they can go try to win games with Fields, and then Fields will raise his trade value, and they maybe get rid of him in the offseason. I think that's
interesting and it makes it such
if they have the 1 or the 2 pick, I feel like that's what they would do.
Such a massive final 2 months for the Bears. It's franchise shifting for potentially a decade because you do have to make that decision. But you almost like you're kind of caught in between because you need Fields to play well, and then it makes the decision probably close to impossible at the end of the year because if he plays well at the end of the year, you're going to bail on him at that point because you're so sure of a college player. But that could be what that's what they're hoping for. And conversely, if he tanks and he struggles and he gets hurt again, what is Justin Fields' trade value? That is a big offseason storyline to watch. But we're not there yet.
Everything's interconnected because you also have to think about if Justin Fields struggles, they're losing more games. Your coach could be fired. Your GM could be fired. Who knows who's making the pick? Right. Is ownership really that confident in this regime? I don't know.
It would be shot. He would have to play so well down the stretch, I think, for them to not take a top 2 overall pick quarterback. I almost don't know what he could do. But like I said, those 2 starts, it was against Denver and Washington. It was way back in weeks, 4 and 5? And then he got hurt in week 6 against the Vikings. And this is a defense, Nick, a little disappointing, I would say, on balance. Certainly a defense you can throw the ball against. I think we've seen that. They're just not good in the secondary. They're playing Cameron Sutton and Tracy Walker at safety and Jacobs. Like, guys are
Those
open.
are guys I liked, though.
Okay.
I liked the way they played last
working.
year. They just haven't lived up to it this year. Yeah, it's not working. It's just not. And I look at their scores and the volatility is pretty big, just depending on opponent. And I have a hard time figuring out why. Aiden Hutchinson is either making a big difference or he's not. They're just facing somebody who can handle him.
I feel like he's always himself, but he needs help. And he's not like Myles Garrett. I know he was a top 2 pick. He is like in the level below, like a Pro Bowler type, but not like Micah Parsons or anything. And that's fine. You're happy with that.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the help on the other side. So the Lions, I thought about this last night, guys, and I don't want to sound like a hater, but I'm going to sound like a hater. If you look at their schedule and who they played this year, they haven't really been tested very much. And if you look at their remaining schedule, they're not really going to get tested very much. Their biggest tests have been Kansas City and, the Ravens, and they got dominated there. And their biggest tests remaining are going to be the 2 games in 3 weeks with Minnesota and Dallas. And
but that's not till
about
week
it.
16. So they have this stretch, which is
Yes.
pretty interesting coming up, where they'll be heavy favorites in every game.
It's
They
all in
could be
front of
like
them.
13-3.
Yeah,
and
they
then
could
get
get.
tested.
Their goal is, because there will be those questions around them. I'm sure by the time January comes around, they'll be playing in the playoffs. Can they get that bye? We'll see. But the schedule sets up well for them. Anything else from this game?
I did want to mention, keep an eye on Jamison Williams. I know it was like 2 for 18 last week. It wasn't much, but it was the best catch of his season on a nice kind of comeback route in the middle of the field. They had a touchdown to him that was overturned. He had that big block on the Montgomery run. And the biggest thing is Dan Campbell this week, who's been so hard on him publicly, was like very positive about he's now one of the guys. He's coming in, he's doing the work, he's consistent. You can sound, he really started to sound confident in him. And we know that Gibbs is the most explosive guy in their offense, but if they get one more explosive guy, just a little more consistent, I wouldn't be surprised if JMO starts making some plays and is like a fantasy factor here down the stretch, just a little bit.
Okay. I mean, that would be
big.
That'd be huge for them. All right, let's close it out, Shook. There's one game left.
Oh,
You
we
have
get
to
the
take it.
big. Well, I know I have to take it. As soon as you picked the last game, I was like, oh, gross. It is Cowboys at Panthers, and it is a test of how networks decide their broadcast crews, because the Panthers at 1-8 get one of the leading crews in the Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, and Tom
Wow.
Rinaldi group for this game.
Hey, when
That
people ask
is-
Shook, people get mad and people say, oh my God, why do the Cowboys get so much coverage? The proof is in the pudding right there, because they know the Cowboys will do a big number, so they put a big team on the game.
They know they'll sell. They know they will get eyes on the television, and then they can pitch it as well. Bryce Young's playing, and everybody wants to see Bryce Young. Anybody who's watched the Panthers this
nobody
season
does.
doesn't want to see very much more of Bryce
No.
Young and Frank Reich, who's supposedly taking over play calling duties again after waffling back and forth. Nothing's going to get any better here with that offense right now. There's too many issues, personnel deficiencies. We've been over it ad nauseum. But the big test for me, and I don't think it's going to be much of a test at all, but a lot of this Cowboys run, which has included phenomenal play on the part of Dak Prescott, has been at home. They have a huge home winning streak. They have not been as good on the road. Not saying that they're going to lose this game. I feel very confident in them because, again, Dak's playing some of the best ball in a long time. But it will be an interesting test to go down there. Carolina, go to Charlotte. Here, keep pounding from the 50 to 75% of the stadium that's full with fans by halftime.
You wonder if, Greg, if the Panthers absorb another ugly defeat here, if we might get another episode of Tepper Be Talking.
Well, yeah, those have been buried. Sometimes they've been so controversial. We haven't even released some episodes of Tepper Be Talking.
We've had to holster some eps of Tepper Be Talking, but
yeah,
maybe we get one in the next few days.
I suspect Tepper Be Talking to Frank Reich about what was going on, and maybe that's why he's taking the play calling back. It's depressing.
It really haunts me. The press conference from a month or so ago when Frank Reich said he has constant conversations where Tepper Be Talking, and they're hard conversations and they're unpleasant conversations. And now you have the play caller switch over, and now the switcheroo is back, and this has all the markings of a one and done tenure from Frank Reich, a man who deserves better. And you know what? Look at it the positive way, Greggy. He will be scooped up by a team. If he would like to stay on the coaching sidelines as an OC, and sure enough, you'll see him on the sidelines at a big playoff game playing a key role. But right now, it feels like he's just going to have to go down with this ship because it's just not working, especially set against the backdrop of Stroud's historic success in Houston.
Well, now all you got to do is play the Cowboys defensive line this weekend. Good luck with that. You mentioned Rico Dowdle, like, is the timeshare coming? I mean, I think it came.
Yeah.
I think it's happening.
Yeah, it did.
Stunning, really. It really is.
McCarthy said, he was quoted as saying he wants guys who can run angry. And,
Oh,
and
no.
Rico runs angry. Well, I mean, I don't think it's a no situation. It's fine.
It is. It's
split up the
saying,
share.
maybe he's not hitting that hole as hard as he needs
Pollard,
to be.
you're saying,
Pollard,
yeah.
and that's, they expected him to be a star this year, and it has not worked out for them. But you know what?
Hey, this is
The Texas Coast offense
this
has
is
been
one of the-
okay otherwise.
Yeah, you're right. And this is one of those tiniest backfields in the NFL, and they just haven't really produced. But it's kind of fun to just sit back and think, all right, who else is going to? Is it Deuce Vaughn? Is it Tony Pollard? Is it Rico Dowdle? Who's going to do it? Well, the group hasn't really produced, but we'll get there.
I think it's another week that because of the matchup, it's like, let's keep getting Cook some numbers. Let's keep getting Gallup some numbers. The Cowboys have been so dominant against these poor sisters of the NFL that they can like just work on getting people like more confident and like work on different parts of their game. It's pretty incredible.
CD Lamb, let's see what he does. Keep that heater going. All right. Before we say goodbye, earlier in the show, Greg and I had a really tender moment in which he lamented something that he didn't bring up in an earlier show, and then I brought it up here, and it just showed that how we had each other's back. So I decided to put up the high five. And let's watch the replay because it got Greg very uncomfortable.
You said high five, so that's
look at this.
But why did you go for the high five?
Whoa! We almost have to blur this out. That is a borderline erotic.
Why are you?
Look at that big meat hook.
Why are you high fiving your little son there? Why? Who is that? Who are those baby hands in there with you?
That's it. Shook.
You did it.
You've said it all. And you've done it all, and we could not appreciate you more.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for entrusting me with a role in this draft and to be on this episode. And as always, it's a blast chatting football with you.
He's bringing the backwards hat back too, Nick.
Oh yeah, look at that. I didn't even clock it.
You got to see how this looks on me.
Yeah, let's see.
I don't wear the dad hat, the curved bill very well forward. Not great.
Is that an F1 thing?
I'm really wearing it because
I don't know anything.
I haven't shaved my head in 5 days.
I think you look great either way, but yeah, it definitely gives off kind of dad at the soccer game vibe. But that'd be fine.
The ears. I got big ears.
That's us.
Now you look hip and young and ready to dominate in a way that few people can even understand or fathom. Shook, thank you, buddy, and thank you to everybody for listening to the Week 11 preview. Yes, we got NFL Plus coming up later today. Thursday night recap coming, and then, yes, on the other side, we recap every game we just previewed. Sunday night, the flagship show. Till then, heed that call.